Welcome to History's Darkest Questions. Today's video is the sad life of Gulag survivors. Imagine being torn from your family, stripped of your identity, and condemned to unimaginable suffering in one of the harshest places on Earth. This was the reality for countless Gulag survivors. The Soviet Gulags, forced labor camps, were a product of Joseph Stalin's regime, designed to crush opposition and control the population through terror. Many entered these camps, but few left with their lives, health, or sanity intact. Gulag survivors lived in a state of constant dread. The journey to the Gulag was often excruciating. Transported in overcrowded, filthy cattle cars, prisoners would endure weeks of inadequate food, water, and sanitation. Many perished before even reaching the camps, beaten down by hunger, cold, and disease. For those who survived this harrowing trip, the worst was yet to come. The Gulag camps were scattered across some of the most inhospitable regions of the Soviet Union, from the frozen tundras of Siberia to the desolate steppes of Kazakhstan. Upon arrival, prisoners were confronted with brutal living conditions. Dilapidated barracks often offered little protection against the biting cold, and basic necessities like food, clothing, and medical care were scarce. In these squalid conditions, diseases such as typhus and dysentery spread like wildfire, claiming countless lives. Forced labor was central to the Gulag system. Prisoners were subjected to backbreaking work, often in extreme weather conditions. Tasks included mining, logging, and construction, all performed with primitive tools and devoid of adequate safety measures. Injuries and fatalities were commonplace, and there was no respite, with workdays extending up to 14 hours. Refusal or failure to meet production quotas often resulted in severe punishment or execution. Hunger was a ruthless companion for Gulag prisoners. The meager rations provided were insufficient to sustain basic health and energy levels, leading to chronic malnutrition. Starvation gnawed at their bodies and spirits, turning ordinary people into hollow-eyed specters of their former selves. Desperate, some resorted to eating rats or searching through garbage for scraps of food. The constant hunger was a silent predator, always lurking and waiting to claim its next victim. Isolation was another form of torment. Communication with the outside world was nearly impossible, and prisoners were cut off from their families, friends, and any semblance of normal life. This isolation often led to mental health issues, including severe depression, anxiety, and even hallucinations. The psychological toll was immense, breaking down the human spirit in ways that scars from physical labor could not. The guards and camp officials ruled with absolute authority and cruelty. Discipline was maintained through a regime of constant surveillance, fear, and violence. Beatings, torture, and arbitrary executions were routine, ensuring that even the slightest disobedience or attempt to escape was met with brutal retribution. Witnessing such violence had a profound and lasting impact on the survivors, embedding deep psychological scars. Even if they managed to survive their sentences, life after the Gulag was fraught with difficulties. Returning to society was an immense challenge. Many former prisoners were stigmatized and faced discrimination, as their time in the camps made them suspects in the eyes of the Soviet government and the public. Limited job opportunities and social ostracism were the harsh realities that awaited them. Families that were torn apart by arrests rarely reunited. The pain of separation, compounded by the struggles of reintegration, often led to broken homes and fragmented lives. The lingering trauma and psychological damage haunted many until their dying days. Nightmares, flashbacks, and an ingrained sense of insecurity followed the survivors long after their physical freedom was restored. The sheer scale of the Gulag system is staggering. It is estimated that millions of people passed through these camps from the 1930s to the 1950s. A large percentage of these inmates never came out alive, and those who did were often forever changed. The ruthless efficiency of the system as a tool of oppression and the widespread human cost it inflicted are marks of a dark chapter in human history. The international community was largely unaware of the full extent of the Gulag system until after World War II, despite hints and testimonies from escapees and defectors. It wasn't until the collapse of the Soviet Union that the sheer scale and horrors of the gulags became fully documented and recognized. This delayed awareness allowed the suffering to continue, unchecked and underreported, for decades. In conclusion, the sad life of Gulag survivors is a grim testament to human endurance and the cruelty of totalitarian regimes. Their stories of relentless suffering, both physical and psychological, are powerful reminders of the depths of human cruelty and the resilience of the human spirit. Let us remember their struggles and honor their memories, ensuring that such atrocities are never forgotten or repeated.